Yeah, the gaining coyotes are here feasting on episode 431 of the Daily Mother Swole. I love doing the ha, ha, whoop, 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 stroke the one. Oh. Wait, hold on.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
You know, if you stroke it soft enough, it becomes an eye. Boink! Welcome everyone to 431 of the Daily Mother Swole. Every day, live at 12 noon Eastern Time. Catch them all on YouTube and watch the podcast. It's one of those Tuesdays again. Listen to the podcast. Fuck the ear holes in the podcast, SoundCloud and iTunes. Fuck the eye holes on Facebook and YouTube. Silly Papa Swolio. Also, make sure you're following me over on Instagram at Swolenormous, obviously for behind the scenes, IG stories, and other live broadcasts and cool shit. Welcome everyone to 431, the most muscular podcast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex. Come on. Sitting on the beach watching Swole, making the sick gains. Oh. Welcome everyone to 431. Thank you for joining me today for Supersets, unlocking the secret to your training. I love supersets. Let's talk a little bit about what the vernacular superset means and how you can use superset training. Now, there's a lot of different aspects to supersets. There's a lot of different strategies. I am not going to list every single one. So if you have something that I didn't mention, which you probably will, you can mention it in the comments, drop it down. Make sure you like and share this broadcast, because if you know someone that likes to pump, and make sick fucking gains, then bring them to the fastest growing fitness community anywhere. The fastest growing fitness community, and it's also the most fucking yoked, because no one at any time, you know what I want to do? I want to set one of those Guinness Book of World Records where you get the most people in one place fucking flexing. Oh, I wonder what the record is. Too bad we can't get a picture of everyone at the same time. I want a big mosaic. That's what I want. Here's what you can do. You can send a picture of a front double bicep. Oh, if you're wearing sunglasses, that's cool. Look as much as you can like Papa Swolio. You could send a flexing picture to swolenormous@gmail.com, and then I'll work on one of those big mosaics. That would be awesome to get everyone in the community flexing and make one of those little tiny pictures where it makes a big logo. That would be badass. So send a flexing picture, swolenormous@gmail. Let's get that started. I'll start making a little archive there. So welcome to 431. And let's get absolutely swole. Supersets. The way that most of you understand supersets, the way that you're all going to relate to supersets is two exercises. Simply stated, two exercises back to back with minimal to no rest. Meaning, for example, some classic supersets, doing a chest and a back exercise back to back, no rest. Doing even, let's say, 2 leg exercises back to back, no rest. Doing biceps and triceps, another classic, back to back, no rest. Here are some of the reasons why superset training can be very effective. First off, it saves time. If you're minimizing your rest, you can get more done, which means you can get more volume done in a shorter period of time. You can get out of the gym in an hour and get more work done, get more gains, XYZ, boom, bang, bing, Faswolio. All right, so that's one thing. I don't know what Faswolio means. Maybe that's for show, Faswolio. But you can get more done in less time. So you're cutting down the rest periods. Now, some of you might be saying, Papa Swolio, are you out of your fucking mind? We've talked about acute variables. You don't want to just cut rest times, because then you're working more towards muscular endurance. And that's true. Exercise science and all the studies that have been compiled, and that's the reason why you have these certain rest periods in textbooks, because hundreds and hundreds of studies in labs and in colleges and universities have found that it's optimal to build muscle with about 30, 60, 90 seconds between sets. So why minimizing rest? How could you still build muscle that way? Just understand that anytime you see these boundaries and guidelines, a lot of times it'll be for endurance, it's 0 to 30 seconds. For hypertrophy, it's 30 seconds to 90 seconds. It's well, both of those start at 30 seconds. endurance might be 0 to 30 and hypertrophy might be 30 plus. It's like, well, what happens at 30? What are you getting? And the reason is this goes by data. This goes by where do most of the subjects fall. It all comes down to like the p-value and the standard deviation. It's all statistics where the majority of the studies lie. So in general, shorter rest, more muscular endurance. In general, a little bit longer rest, but still short, 30, 60, 90 seconds, more muscular hypertrophy, more cross-sectional diameter of the muscle fibers, of the myofibrils, and all that scientific mumbo jumbo. So think of every muscle fiber as a straw, like a tube, and when you lift and when you get like more yoked, that tube gets wider. It's like a bigger pipe, okay? It just gets more and more wide. So you don't increase the number of fibers, you increase the size of the fibers that you have. Hypertrophy, you're just increasing hyper more. It's like thyroid, hyperthyroid, hypo, or hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia, more, and hypo is less, so hypertrophy. I don't know if there is a hypotrophy. I don't think that's even a word. If it is, I've never heard it used. So when we're discussing supersets, we're talking minimal, short rest, extremely short rest. So how does short rest help you build muscle if we discuss that really minimal rest can lead more towards muscular endurance? Increased mitochondrial density, more oxidative capacity, a little bit less on the hypertrophy spectrum. Doesn't mean you don't build muscle with muscular endurance. It just means you're not, and here, let me be clear about that too. Just because you're doing, let's say, muscular endurance training, it doesn't mean you don't get any hypertrophy. Just because you do higher repetitions, think and listen to me very carefully. Just because you do, let's say, higher repetition sets, doesn't mean you build zero muscle. It just means that the acute variables, the style of your training, doesn't maximize all like what's known about growing muscle, okay? That doing strength training, although you will build some muscle, it's more towards building motor neural activity and motor unit recruitment and motor unit synchronization to fire those muscles to produce the most force in a short period of, in a certain period of time, not growing the muscle fiber maximally. So you have situations where you can, the acute variables, you can put your muscles in an environment where it is most likely to grow the muscles maximally. Or you could do other styles of training, muscular endurance, muscular strength, type 1 fiber activation, where you may build some muscle, but that's not the primary result. That's not the primary effect. That's not the likely outcome primarily of that style of training. So it doesn't mean you don't build any muscle. Like, oh, if you do 20 repetitions, you're not going to get huge. That's completely bullshit. It just means that you're not putting your body in the absolute best situation in general, across a large population to build muscle. So what we're trying to do is build muscle. Let's pretend like we're all trying to build muscle. Men, women, right here, everyone, we're trying to build muscle. And this doesn't mean you're going to get huge, ladies. It means you're going to develop muscles. This is what you want to do. So we're talking about supersets. What are some different ways to superset? Well, and why does it work? Let's just go with the classic arms, biceps and triceps. You have two muscles on opposite parts of the joint. You have, let's go here, you have the bicep and then you have the tricep. So when one's shortening, the other one's lengthening. You can see that. Lengthening and that shortens and then lengthens. So you have this dynamic where two muscles are working on opposite parts of a joint. Same thing with chest and back. When you do a superset, let's say bicep, tricep, let's say push, pull, and then back and chest, push, pull. When you have that lever system, that kind of like, one's pushing, one's pulling, one's working, one's relaxing. None of them are really ever relaxing. They're just not activating primarily. You're kind of getting activity while one rests. So you're working one muscle while the other one is on the opposing part, just supporting the joint. And then after you're done with that set, you go immediately back to the other body part. And the first one you train, let's say biceps you did first, that one kind of rests. And then you do triceps. Now, one of the ideas is that one muscle is resting, but it's not really completely resting, but you're not activating it primarily, but you get a lot of blood flow to one area. So if you're doing chest and back and forth, or biceps and triceps, you're flushing that entire area full of blood. That's why you get a sick fucking pump when you do biceps and triceps or chest and back. You're flushing that area full of blood, and it's easily accessible because what blood does. And the reason why you get that pump is because the muscles, when you're training, your sympathetic nervous system turns on and floods those muscles, the muscles that are active, the muscles that are working with blood in order to provide the cells with oxygen, to clear out lactate and other garbage nutrients, and to provide that, gas diffusion in the capillaries. That's why your body sends blood to those areas. That's why you feel a pump, because blood flushes that area. And if you're doing biceps and triceps back and forth, and not like biceps and thighs, you're sending all the blood back and forth, back and forth. Your body is continuously sending blood to that area, and it's very efficient because right in that spot is where all the blood at the moment needs to be. Not all, but the blood that you need for all your activity. You're not doing upper body like a chest, and then you're not doing calves, and then back to chest. You're not splitting it. You're not doing a peripheral heart action type training. You're doing biceps, triceps, or chest and back. You're keeping the blood localized. And that's one of the benefits of doing, let's say, quads and hamstrings, or biceps, triceps, or biceps and shoulders, or something in the area, is that it keeps it close. Not to mention, so it's easier to get a pump in the opposing muscle. It's easier to get that kind of, that tight feeling, but it also is very efficient for the body in order to make sure blood is saturating that area. So you're saving time, and you're keeping the blood localized in that area. Not to mention, you also get this type of cushioning effect. When you're doing biceps and triceps, for example, when you're doing a tricep exercise and your biceps are pumped, you get a lot of support around that joint. It keeps the joint warm. It keeps the tension more balanced inside, because once you do a set, the tension doesn't just disappear from the muscle. You still have that tightness. You still have that elastic potential energy stored in the elastic tissue of the opposing muscle group. So keeping a more balanced tension during your training is very beneficial for reducing the risk of injury, for overloading one tendon on one side of the joint. So doing biceps and triceps is a very nice seesaw effect, like the Justice scale. It's a very nice balancing effect in the joint when you're doing your training. Same thing for chest and back and the shoulder. It also encourages you to make sure that you're doing the balancing exercises properly. When you're doing chest, you're not just going to the gym doing chest. When you're doing chest, you're doing back, and you're going back and forth. One of the other benefits of doing superset training is you do get a cardiovascular benefit. You do get an endurance benefit because you're not resting. And things like chest and back are more challenging. That's what Arnold used to do, but Arnold and these guys used to take a lot of fucking anabolic steroids. So don't think that, oh, Arnold used to do heavy chest and back 3 days a week. Yeah, you're not gonna do that. You're not recovering that quickly. You're not taking that much sauce. And if you are, be careful. Those types of workouts, chest and back, are very exhausting. They're very exhausting because they work large muscle groups. So if you're not used to it, if you're not used to supersets, period, just start slower. Don't start with 0 rest, start with 30 seconds. 30 seconds, if you take a stopwatch into a gym, 30 seconds is fucking nothing. I mean, float some hearts, float some thumbs, leave some comments below. I want to hear about your supersets and what your favorite superset is. But drop your opinion. I want to hear what you think about supersets, because when you start doing, let's say, a chest and back, or you do like a 30-second rest, it sounds like, oh, that's 30 seconds. 30 seconds is absolute dickhole. It's nothing. When you're lifting hard, 30 seconds is fucking nothing. It goes like that. I love supersets. I love doing biceps and triceps. I enjoy doing chest and back. I don't do that a lot, but I do like doing chest and back together. I think it's a great combination, especially for someone that's just getting started. It's chest and back superset is the closest thing to doing like a total body, upper body day. It's a great way to start filtering yourself into a larger macro training split, to the point where you're doing, let's say, chest and triceps, or chest on one day, for example. So if you're just starting training, total body workouts a couple days a week are fine to get you started. Then you could start with some upper body, lower body splits, some push-pull splits. We're gonna get more into some of those episodes and talk more about that moving forward. Those of you that are new to the broadcast, the Swolecast, welcome. But this week's premium workshop on Thursday at 8 p.m. is gonna be detailed case study breaking down and creating a starter and intermediate kind of level program. So last week we talked about how to start a program, how to set up a program for the premium workshop. And this week we're going to get into more specifics of what that program looks like for the average person and how you can tweak with the whole Q&A. So if you have a program that you're doing or that you're working on, you're trying to put together, we're going to talk about the exercise to do, the rep range, which exercise are the best ones to start with. And we're just doing a general hypertrophy, strength training program. I'm not going to get into total correct active exercise on this one, but this workshop, this week's Thursday at 8 o'clock. So if you want to join, you want to check out and register for that, for the group and for the premium workshops, the link is in the description here of the post. So this week's workshop is going to be fucking lit, really literally breaking down a program. But supersets could be a huge part of that. Supersets could be a huge part of that programming because it's great to work on a macro scale. Now, one other way where you could do a superset is to do a peripheral hard, where you can do upper body, lower body. This is a little bit more intensive because you're splitting blood between upper body regions and lower body regions. Let's say you're doing chest and legs. Not my favorite. Not my favorite. Peripheral heart is not my favorite. Now, you might like this because it is a little bit more cardiovascular. It's a little bit more intensive on the heart because the cardiovascular system has to work a little bit harder to get blood to the upper body and then down to the lower body and then back to the upper body from set to set. I'm just not a big fan of doing a major muscle group like chest or shoulders or back with lower body, with the lower body, unless it's something like legs and back, which I really just don't do. But you start getting into that gray area where deadlifts are kind of like legs, deadlifts are kind of like back. What day should I do deadlifts on? Should I do it on leg day? Should I do it on back day? And we could discuss more about that in another episode. But larger muscle groups, it depends on your goal. It depends on what you're looking for. It depends on what period of your training you're in. If you're kind of like on like a detraining, deloading, you don't want as much volume, or if you're just getting started, you can do some of those splits. For someone that's much more advanced, for someone that is looking for more like a bodybuilding, like an aesthetic type program, once you get to the point where you're doing larger muscle groups for more volume, doing that kind of a combination like chest and legs on the same day is not ideal because you can get a lot more volume, a lot more focus by segmenting and doing legs only and doing one or two upper body parts only on another day. You can mix it up. Don't get this twisted. You can mix it up. You can absolutely, just change it up for yourself one week or here and again, and maybe you love it. You won't know until you try it, but my point is anytime that you combine body parts, right? Let's say you're just doing chest or just legs. I'm not saying that's how the human body moves. I'm not saying you should never do total body compound movements. You absolutely should. I love things that integrate the upper and lower body, when you add them into your training. But if you're trying to get enough volume, you're trying to overload a certain area of the body so it's going to stimulate muscle growth, you need to give that body part enough time in the training in order to overload it. And if you only have, let's say, an hour and you're doing 6 body parts, it's not going to get the overload that it requires to grow the way you expect it to. So you have to give certain body parts a lot more attention. And that's where supersets can come into handy because you can save time and get more done for larger muscle groups like chest and back or like biceps and triceps. Those aren't large muscle groups, but you get my point. Rather than just doing biceps alone on one day or biceps with back or triceps with chest, although I do like that sometimes, I like to focus on chest and back so much, I don't like leaving something major hanging off at the end. I like to focus on one thing, crush it, and then come back later in the week and do some biceps and triceps. So those are some ways you can do supersets. I encourage supersets. If you haven't tried a bicep tricep superset, it's absolutely fucking nasty. It's, in my opinion, the only way to roll. I love biceps and triceps together. If you've never tried it, especially, give it a shot. But when you start your supersets, whichever superset you start, whichever one you try, if you try a leg superset, any 2 exercises back to back, but generally on opposite sides of the joint, make sure that you, if you've never done it before, start with a larger rest period. 30 seconds, maybe even a minute if you've never done a superset before, but pace yourself and then slowly see the difference between a minute between sets, which isn't really a superset, but maybe 45 or 30 seconds, and then drop it to 20 seconds and 10 seconds, and then drop the weight and then pick up the next weight right away, and then see what the difference between 15 seconds and 0 seconds, and you'll see what supersets can really be like. And it will affect your strength output in many cases, but it won't affect your muscle growing capacity. If anything, it will help it. So supersets are amazing. Highly recommend it. If you've never tried a superset, what are you waiting for? Try your supersets. I'll see all of you probably in a few minutes for a little 431 recap on Instagram Live. Drop that in my story and drop that in my feed so you guys can get a little quick summary if you caught me late. But make sure you watch this later, rewatch it, catch us anytime. You can also watch them on YouTube and the SoundCloud and iTunes podcast for the ear holes. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 431 of the Daily Mother Sleazy. Remember, Premium Workshop Series continues Thursday this week at 8 p.m. Breaking down case study, program design, one-on-one, getting into the reps, the sets, the exercises, the split. Awesome shit. So if you're not registered for Premium, jump in there today. Link is in the description. Love you all. Peace, McGee's, deuce, Magoose. Thanks for joining me for the most muscular swole cast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex. You like that one? That was good. 431. I'm out. Peace.